Hello everyone, this is Ponder on Weather. In this update, we've got several flash flooding setups in the coming days, and the progressive heat continues to build. Plus, there may be something in the tropics trying to brew in the longer range. Good morning everyone, how's it going out there? Hoping everyone is having a fabulous week. We've got a lot to cover in this update, and we're going to delve into it over the next 7 days. So let's get right to it and take a look at the overall satellite picture this morning for your Thursday. And we got this huge complex of storms that blew up over portions of Missouri that sent copious amounts of rain in and around the St. Louis area again. Picked up over 4 inches of rain with this complex of storm. There's a lot of lightning strikes. They've had some high water rescues in the area. Now that's progressing and pushing further into Arkansas this later on this morning, and that will continue to push southward. And as it does, it will slowly kind of wane away. But some of this northern piece may try to spin off and head towards portions of Kentucky later on this afternoon into the evening time frame. Plus, we have another complex of storms down here into the desert southwest, just south of Phoenix there, with a lot of heavy rain in those areas as this weak frontal boundary is progressed across portions of the Ohio Valley. That sneaks in portions of the Northeast today, where they are looking at for some stronger to severe thunderstorms for them. And then along the coast, they've got heat advisories taking shape in portions of the Northeast. But zooming in to portions of in and around the St. Louis area, yeah, that area got hit again. And that's the same area that got hit in the last week or two. So now we're talking St. Louis is actually about 11 inches above average rainfall for the year. And they've just been getting relentless amount of systems, kind of one after another, kind of training over those same areas. And that looks to continue possibly over the next couple of days. So let's take a look at the overall big picture and look at some of the temperatures just kind of a little bit further south. So where you have that instability in the trough and that weakness of the low pressure in the cold front, that's where you have all the cooler conditions. But out ahead of it, just the complete opposite. You just have that dominating ridge that just won't move away from Texas, with widespread triple digits for a good chunk of Texas. But that now extends all the way further north, and we're talking widespread hundreds all the way to the Canadian border. So pretty intense heat in all these areas down here in the circled area. That's where your record maximum high. So numerous records could unfold right along, say, in the Boston area. I think their average high is like 82 this time of year. So you're talking upper 90s, if not almost 100 degrees today. So that is definitely plenty warm for them. But yeah, underneath that, out ahead of it, with that complex system that has that weak frontal boundary, just a marginal risk for severe storms. The main impact for these systems is kind of the heavier rain with the higher precipitation water values into the atmosphere. So definitely be on the lookout for some heavier downburst winds later on this afternoon. And then once the heavier rains will start to creep into your area. But yeah, if we kind of zoom in and look at the overall water values and how you would actually read this map, is down here in the bottom corner of the screen. All the areas in purple, that's indicated almost the atmosphere is basically has about a 2-inch per hour rainfall rate. You start getting into the yellow areas, that's over 2 inches an hour. So you got to have some sort of lift. And so the lift is the mechanism with the upper level low producing that low pressure, that cold front. That's going to be kind of causing those kind of overriding conditions and producing that very heavy rain with these kind of tropical dew points. Your dew points are actually in the mid 70s out here. And let's zoom into some of those dew points. Yeah, so whenever you see dew points into the 72, 75 range, that is plenty of moisture in the atmosphere. So then you have to have some sort of lift mechanism to go along with that. And you've got both of those. And that's why you're able to produce, wringing out some very heavy rain once that convective, conveyor belt starts, essentially. Then it just kind of wrings out all the moisture in the atmosphere. And then under that ridge of high pressure, well, obviously you have lower dew points, lower humidity values. It's next to almost impossible to rain in that type of atmosphere. So it's essentially just kind of been feast or famine. You get a lot of heavy rains and flooding rains, or you basically get nothing. And so as we go into Friday, if we take a look at the upper level winds, these are just kind of streaming across. These are just streaming across, and as they do, you'll start to see subtle buckles. And when you start a little bit of buckle in the atmosphere, that sends out pulses of energy, and it'll send out kind of a mesoscale convective complex out ahead of it. So by the time we get into Friday, we see another one of those buckles in the atmosphere. And so by the time we get into the afternoon hours, that's going to have the lift in the atmosphere. That's going to produce a kind of another line of strong thunderstorms into portions of Nebraska, heading into South Dakota, getting into Minneapolis. These darker shaded reds here, that's an indication of your very heavy rainfall. Once you get into the yellow shaded areas down here, then that's kind of a more of a moderate rain. And then once you get into the green shaded areas, that's kind of your lighter rain. So that's how you would actually read that map. So if going forward, going into the weekend, as we get into Sunday, we do have subtle hints, subtle changes in the atmosphere, as we do have a cold front. We actually have a cold front to talk about. It's a, you know, of course, it's the middle of summer. It's not going to drop it drastically, but that this is a fairly decent sized cold front, 5, 10, 15 degrees cooler temperatures underneath this cold front. They'll be shifting further south in time, and it'll have another rain showers with it along the way. So this is by Sunday afternoon, along that cold front, should be laying across into portions of Nebraska, going into southern portions of Minnesota, getting into Iowa there, all the way up into Wisconsin. And that'll just feed and combine with the monsoonal flow that's been prevalent in that area. And then you get all this kind of a sea breeze action down here further off into the southeast, and of course parts of the deep south. And we have possibly another system trying to form in the Pacific. It's just been relentless, system after system, named systems, very active on into the Pacific so far this year. But yeah, looking at Tuesday, yeah, here's your cold front, right? I mean, it's pushing further south. It actually gets into Texas. Yeah, it actually gets into Texas by the time we get into Tuesday afternoon, the Texas Panhandle. Oklahoma is going to be seeing a reprieve from the heat by then. We're talking, you know, good 5 to at least 10 degrees cooler than what you've been seeing as of late. And that'll sneak into portions of Kentucky again, getting into the Tennessee Valley, and then it'll reach all the way into portions of the Ohio Valley. But underneath that, you'll have your kind of significant water value contents out ahead of it. So as the cold front will push further to the south, it'll tap into that energy. You got that lift in the atmosphere. So we could be looking at some decent sized rains actually hitting portions of Oklahoma. They desperately need the rain out there. That'll impact portions again, say the St. Louis area again, getting back into Arkansas, going into Tennessee, going into Kentucky. Obviously, these areas do not need the rainfall, and that will spread into portions of Ohio as this will continue to try to push a little bit further south. And by the time we get into your Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday night time frame, there are subtle indications right now where it may try to cross over into Texas and cross into portions of North Texas, and at least have a brief respite from the continuous triple-digit heat that you've been seeing as of late, as we'll start to see possibly, you know, instead of hundreds every day, you might be looking at mid-90s or if not upper 90s. So we're not talking significant cool down, but at least it's some sort of reprieve from the triple-digit heat that you have been seeing as of late. And that will actually bring hopefully some rain in those areas, and those part shaded, you know, areas of deep of Texas, where most of the state now, 87% with the drought monitor index that just came out, under an extreme drought, guys. So Texas is in desperate need of rain, and this won't be until the middle of next week. But there are at least subtle signs, at least some precipitation will try to sneak in at least the northern parts of Texas, and we'll just have to see how far south that's able to bring heading into central Texas. But the whole entire state is deeply parched in a big way. But that cold front will continue to sink, try to sink a little bit further south into the southeast, but kind of expanding the view in the North American view. Again, going into Thursday, this will be a week from now, we start to see little kinks in the hose again, right? So we have another little buckle in the jet stream. Well, this will buckle down, pull down some little bit of instability, a little bit of cooler conditions. That'll bring more rain showers for them, those areas, into portions of Wisconsin, getting into portions of Michigan here. That'll eventually head back into portions of the Northeast as we get into your Thursday time frame. And there's your ridge of high pressure too that's dominating, that will allow that like I said, the cold front to kind of subtle sneak into portions of Oklahoma and Texas, with that dominating ridge moving a little bit further west. That opens the door for that kind of a backdoor system to enter portions of Texas going into your Wednesday, going into your Thursday time frame of next week. But as we expand the view and take you into Friday, that kink in the hose is very subtle, and then you kind of get more of a zonal flow, and as you get into your Friday time frame. But let's take a look at the tropics, right? So it's been pretty quiet. We've had 3 named storms so far. The Pacific's been gangbusters. This is what you would typically see kind of in a normal August time frame in the tropics. So if you go back in the last since basically 1944 and take a look at the history of all the named storms that have developed in the month of August, this is where they usually develop, mainly in portions of out here into the main development region. But there's also another heavier pocket where they produced over 50 named storms off here, portions of the southeast coast. So these are areas to watch for this time of year. If something were to try to brew in the tropics, you still get storms in the green shaded areas, but not as favorable. So going forward and looking at some of the ensemble members, now of course this is about 9-10 days out, but there's at least some sort of hints where we're starting to get seeing more ensemble members trying to pop up with some of these sporadic ensemble guidance, trying to form maybe something. This would typically implies maybe some sort of a cold front that might sneak up off the coast. You always have to watch tail ends of fronts this time of year, but we also have these kind of tropical waves that also come out off the main development region, and then we have more and more ensemble members now every day trying to come packed together. And by the time we get into, say, the 12th and 13th time frame, there may be something trying to enter portions of the islands here, sneaking into the Caribbean. And so if we kind of zoom in into the overall vorticity index, and we can actually see by the 13th we've got a pretty good swirl on the operational guidance on the European, crossing over the islands and heading into the Caribbean. So we'll have to watch this. We got plenty of time to watch this. This is, of course, this is about 10, this is 9-10 days out from there. So we've got plenty of time to watch this particular system, but it's going to bring a lot of tropical rain. So it's been pretty quiet in the Caribbean and much of the Atlantic, but I do feel things are going to be starting to ramp up. I mean, a lot of times, the season technically really doesn't start until August 15th. That's the meat of the season, because we still got about over 60% of the season left. So typically your busiest times is August 15th to October 15th, with peak season September 10th. So not that unusual that it hadn't been very active as of now, but things are really going to start to ramp up in a big way, especially as we get past into the second half of August. But yeah, so we'll have to be watching this little tropical wave by the time we get into your 12th and 13th time frame, entering the islands here, crossing over into the Caribbean, sending in heavier amounts of precipitation. Underneath that, you can see the relentless stream of moisture from the European coming off the main development region, heading into the islands. And then you get these little action possibly along the coast with these stalled frontal boundaries. So these are all areas to watch. You watch anything this time of year in the tropics and look at all the beneficial rains, possibly at least subtle and at least a little bit, even if it's a 1/4 inch into portions of Texas. And the GFS is kind of implying the same thing with these little waves that come off the African coast, trying to hold together as we get into that second half of August. So hey, I appreciate you guys watching. Do follow me on Twitter as well as Facebook with updates as well when I'm not updating on this channel throughout the day. But I'm usually here every morning continuing to give you updates. So I appreciate you guys watching. If you hadn't hit the subscribe button already, feel free to do so. I appreciate you guys watching. Catch me in the next update where I protect you before and after the storm.